the Zero, the Betty, the Oka suicide rocket. Each name tells a story of innovation, desperation, and the pilots who flew them. Let's explore the aircraft that changed naval warfare forever. We start our list with fighters. Mitsubishi A5M. This was the Imperial Japanese Navy's primary carrier fighter when the war started. It was fast, maneuverable, and dominated the skies over China. The Allied codename was Claude. Mitsubishi A6M, a true legend. This Zero fighter was the most famous Japanese aircraft of the entire war. Its phenomenal range and agility shocked the Allies during the early campaigns. Mitsubishi A6M3, an important modification of the Zero. This model featured clipped wing pits and a slightly larger engine. It addressed some performance issues experienced at higher speeds. Nakajima A6M2N, often called the Roof. This version of the Zero was ingeniously adapted with a large central float. It performed vital patrol and interception duties over remote areas. Kawanishi N1K1J, a very capable fighter known as Rex. It demonstrated excellent maneuverability, often proving a tough opponent, even for land-based fighters early in the conflict. Next, Kawanishi N1K2J, the feared Shiden Kai. Widely considered one of the best Japanese fighters of the war. It was robust, well-armed, and could finally challenge the late-war American planes like the Hellcat. Now this is the Mitsubishi J2M, codenamed Raiden or Thunder Lightning. This was a dedicated interceptor fighter designed specifically to climb fast and shoot down heavy bombers. It was difficult to manufacture, limiting its impact. Nakajima J1N, known as Gecko or Moonlight. Initially designed as a long-range escort fighter, it found its true calling as a very effective night fighter. It utilized upward-firing cannons, an innovation known as Schrager music. Nakajima Ki-27. This was the mainstay fighter of the Imperial Japanese Army in the late 1930s. Known as Nate, it was highly agile, but quickly became obsolete when facing modern Allied monoplanes. Nakajima Ki-43, the Hayabusa or Peregrine Falcon. This was the Imperial Army's equivalent of the Zero. Codenamed Oscar, it was known for its extreme agility thanks to special combat flaps. Up next, Nakajima Ki-44, a dedicated high-altitude interceptor, codenamed Tojo. It was designed for speed and rapid climb, prioritizing performance over maneuverability. This was a necessary shift in design philosophy. Nakajima Ki-44-2 Shaki, an improved version of the Tojo interceptor. It featured better armor and engine power. Its primary crucial role was defending the home islands against the B-29 raids. Kawasaki Ki-45, nicknamed Toryu, or Dragon Slayer. This was a heavy twin-engine fighter. It saw varied service including ground attack and notably as a night fighter. Next, Kawasaki Ki-45 Kai. This late-war modification of the Dragon Slayer saw increased armament and improved engines. It was used heavily in attempts to intercept American heavy bombers. Kawasaki Ki-61, codenamed Haiyan or Flying Swallow. It was unique in Japanese service because it utilized a German Daimler-Benz derived liquid-cooled engine. It was known by the Allies as Tony. Nakajima Ki-84, the Hayate or Gale, known as Frank by the Allies. This was arguably the best mass-produced army fighter of the war. It combined excellent speed, range, and armament. Then Kawasaki Ki-100, an emergency masterpiece. Designers took a failing He-161 airframe and fitted a reliable air-cooled engine. The result was a surprisingly successful and highly effective defensive fighter. Now this is the Kawasaki Ki-102, a twin-engine heavy fighter developed late in the war. It served in multiple roles, including ground attack, and as a fast interceptor, armed with a huge 57mm cannon. Kawasaki Ki-93, a very heavily armed experimental prototype. It was intended to be a long-range ground attack and bomber-destroyer aircraft. Only one was ever completed and flown before the end of the war, Kawasaki Ki-Itaed, known as Perry by the Allies. This was a biplane fighter that served as the mainstay of the Imperial Japanese Army Air Force in the late 1930s. It was highly maneuverable but became obsolete as monoplane fighters emerged. Next up, bombers. Dive, torpedo, medium, heavy, attack. Aichi D-3A, known as the VAL. This was the primary dive bomber used by the Japanese Navy at the start of the war. It inflicted tremendous damage during the attack on Pearl Harbor and subsequent early battles. The next one, Yokosuka D-4Y, the Suisei, or Comet. This sleek dive bomber was fast, using a liquid-cooled engine similar to the Tolley fighter. Its performance made it difficult for early Allied fighters to catch. Nakajima B-5N, the most common Japanese torpedo bomber of the early war period. Known as Kate, it achieved huge successes at Pearl Harbor and at the Battle of Midway. Then, Nakajima B-6N, known as Tenzin, or Heavenly Mountain. This was the successor to the Kate torpedo bomber. It was faster and more robust, but its deployment suffered due to severe aircraft carrier losses. The next one, Aichi B-7A, a carrier-based attack bomber known as Ryushi, or Shooting Star. It was an excellent design, extremely fast and capable of both dive bombing and torpedo attacks, though it arrived too late to affect the war greatly. Then Mitsubishi G3M, codenamed Nell. This was an older twin-engine bomber, known for its incredible range. It was crucial for striking targets in China before the war expanded across the Pacific. The next one, Mitsubishi G4M, the infamous Betty. A long-range twin-engine bomber notorious for lacking armor and self-sealing fuel tanks, earning it the nickname the Flying Cigarette Lighter. The next one, Yokosuka P-1Y, known as Ginga, or Milky Way. This was a fast twin-engine medium bomber and night fighter. Its sophisticated engines and complex systems often led to reliability issues. Next, Yokosuka B-4Y, a predecessor to the Kate. This was a biplane torpedo bomber that saw service on carriers during the opening stages of the Sino-Japanese War. Nakajima B-3Y, an obsolete biplane torpedo bomber from the 1930s. It was quickly replaced by more modern monoplane designs like the Kate. Mitsubishi Kai-21, known as Sally. This was the primary heavy bomber used by the Imperial Japanese Army early in the war. It saw extensive use in bombing missions over China and Southeast Asia. Mitsubishi Kai-30, a single-engine light bomber used by the Army, known as An. It was fast for its type, but suffered heavy losses as the war progressed. Then Kawasaki Ki-32, a simple single-engine light bomber known as Mary, served briefly in the early stages of the conflict before being relegated to training roles. Kawasaki Ki-48, known as Lily. This twin-engine light bomber was designed for speed. However, it lacked defensive armament and soon became very vulnerable to Allied fighters. Nakajima Ki-49, the Danru or Storm Dragon, known as Helen. This medium bomber was designed to be better armored than its predecessors, but it still proved susceptible to American fighters. The next one, Mitsubishi Ki-51, a rugged, highly effective close support and dive bomber aircraft. Known as Sonia, it was deployed heavily for tactical ground attack roles throughout the war. Then Mitsubishi Ki-67, the Hiryu or Flying Dragon, known as Peggy. This was arguably the best Japanese heavy bomber design of the war. It was fast, well-armed, and exceptionally robust, designed for high-speed evasion. The next one, Aichi M6A1 Siren, the Siren or Clear Sky Storm. This was a unique submarine-launched attack bomber designed to be carried and launched from the massive 1-400 class submarines. It was intended to strike the Panama Canal, but never saw combat. Next up, Reconnaissance and Patrol, Nakajima C6N, known as Sayun or Painted Cloud, codenamed Mert. This was one of the fastest single-engine aircraft of the war, designed specifically for high-speed reconnaissance missions from aircraft carriers. Nakajima C5M, a fast land-based reconnaissance aircraft based on an earlier fighter design. It provided vital photographic intelligence during the expansion phase of the conflict. Mitsubishi F1M, a tough, versatile biplane floatplane known as Pete. It performed scouting, anti-submarine, and even fighter escort roles from battleships and cruisers. Now this is the Aichi E-30A, the primary Japanese Navy reconnaissance floatplane of the war. Codenamed Jake, it was used widely for long-range patrols and spotting duties. Next, Kawanishi E-7K, an older, reliable three-seat biplane floatplane known as ALF. It performed basic reconnaissance and communications duties for the fleet early in the conflict. Now this is the Nakajima E-A-10, a robust biplane catapult-launched reconnaissance floatplane. Known as Dave, it served reliably from cruisers and battleships during the late 1930s. Aichi E-16A, the Zuyun, or auspicious cloud. This was a capable replacement for the standard reconnaissance floatplane, designed for enhanced performance and protection. Kyushu Q-1W, known as Tokai or Eastern Sea, codenamed Lorna. This was the world's first aircraft designed specifically for anti-submarine warfare. It hunted Allied U.S. submarines using magnetic detectors. Nakajima E-4N, a vintage biplane reconnaissance floatplane dating back to the late 1920s. It was rapidly relegated to secondary duties by the start of World War II. Mitsubishi Ki-15, a very high-speed reconnaissance plane, known as BABS. It broke speed records in the 1930s and provided critical intelligence gathering capability for the Japanese Army. Tachikawa Ki-36, known as IDA. This single-engine aircraft was used primarily for liaison, Army cooperation, and light attack duties. It was a common sight over the front lines in China. Mitsubishi Ki-46, the Shedden, or Storm, known as Diner. This was an exceptionally fast, high-altitude twin-engine reconnaissance aircraft, often evading interception due to its speed. Next, Kawasaki Ki-48-2 Kai, a late-war improved version of the Lily Light bomber. This modification saw enhanced defensive capabilities and often served in desperate suicide missions later in the conflict. Yokosuka E-14Y, known as Glenn by the Allies. This was a small reconnaissance floatplane designed to be launched from submarines. It famously conducted reconnaissance flights over Pearl Harbor and the American mainland, making it one of the few Japanese aircraft fly over the continental United States. Moving on to flying boats, Kawanishi H-6K, a huge flying boat known as Mavis. It was used for long-range patrol and transport duties. Its size and range were highly impressive for its time. Kawanishi H-8K, the gigantic and heavily armed flying boat known as Emily. It was considered the best flying boat of the war, possessing excellent defensive firepower and tremendous range. Next up, transports and gliders. Showa Nakajima L-2D, a license-built version of the American Douglas DC-3 transport. Known as Tabby, it was indispensable for moving personnel and crucial supplies across the vast Pacific theater. Now, this is the Nakajima Ki-34, a twin-engine transport aircraft known as Thora. It served as a workhorse, moving troops and supplies across mainland Asia and the surrounding islands. Mitsubishi Ki-57, known as Topsy. This was a transport version of the Army's K-121 bomber. It was extensively used for V-1P transport and high-priority logistics mission. Next, Tachikawa Ki-54, a twin-engine light transport and training aircraft known as Hickory. It was reliable and versatile, used for various training and communication roles. Tachikawa Ki-54C, a specialized modification of the Hickory transport. This version was often equipped for reconnaissance or light attack roles using small bombs. Kawasaki Ki-56, known as Thalia. This was a Japanese adaptation of a Lockheed airliner design. It was a key medium-range transport plane for the Army. Kakusai Ki-59, a high-wing twin-engine transport. It was mostly used by civilian airlines but saw military service for liaison and light transport duties. Hokusai Q-8, a simple, high-wing troop transport glider. It was designed to silently deliver soldiers and equipment, though its combat use was very limited. Yokosuka K-5Y, the most widely used primary trainer in the Imperial Japanese Navy. Known as Willow, this robust biplane trained thousands of naval aviators. Kishu K-1EVN-W, a single-engine monoplane designed as a crew trainer for bomber crews. Known as Shiragiku or White Chrysanthemum, it later saw use in kamikaze attacks. Yokosuka K-5Y-2, a modification of the standard Willow trainer biplane, adapted with floats for water-based training. Continuing with trainers, Tachikawa K-9, a biplane intermediate trainer used by the Japanese Army. Known as Spruce, it provided essential training for pilots transitioning from basic to operational aircraft. Tachikawa Ki-55, an advanced trainer version of the K-136 liaison plane. It was used to introduce Army pilots to tactical flying and light attack techniques. Finally, we have Special One-trained suicide aircraft, Yokosuka MXY-7 Oka. This was the infamous rocket-powered manned missile, codenamed Baka, meaning idiot, by the Allies. It was exclusively designed but terminal kamikaze attacks against Allied ships,